During the past 4 years, the federal government has spent about 24% of the gross domestic product. And the result has been 4 consecutive years of annual deficits above $1 trillion. And that makes the national debt balloon to $16 trillion. The national debt has increased more since 2008 than it did all the time from President George Washington up to President George W. Bush. Contrary to the president's insistence, raising taxes on wealthy will not bridge the budget gap, especially when new revenue isn't used to pay down that debt. Earlier this year, the president called for increasing taxes to spend more on government programs, adding $10 trillion more to the debt over a 10-year period of time. In the Senate, the Democratic majority didn't offer, let alone pass, a budget for each of the last 3 years, even though the law requires a budget every year. And the tax legislation passed on January the 1st didn't address the Washington's spending problem. With a new Congress beginning this week, it's time to start focusing on the spending side of the ledger. There's no time to waste. In fact, the Senate Majority Leader needs to allow the Senate to function through the committee process with debate and consideration of amendments. This approach, called regular order in Congress, develops the best possible legislation and, of course, avoids 11th hour fiascos like what happened with the fiscal cliff last week. In addition, strong presidential leadership is needed. Congress isn't inclined to act on legislation that won't be signed into law. So that involves the president needing to step up and be actively involved and engaged in this legislative process. Already, and in addition to what was passed yesterday, the president has made it clear he wants to raise taxes yet again. Well, I've come to the conclusion a long time ago, and I'll bet you have as well, you can't raise taxes high enough to satisfy the appetite of Washington to spend your money. And the problem, of course, is spending. So, presidential leadership is needed for the spending problem. A comprehensive bipartisan effort to enact meaningful tax and spending reforms would show the rest of the world that the United States is committed to fiscal fitness and prosperity for generations to come.